folks, and welcome to another edition of the 50-Cent Tour. I'm Pete James, and today you history buffs are going to love where we are at. We're with Miss Mary Conger. Hello, Mary.
Hi there, Pete. How are you, and welcome.
Well, thank you. I've never been better, to tell you the truth.
Well, it's nice to have you.
Mary Conger, you are living in the oldest house in Lincoln County that's being lived in right now.
That's being lived in.
Well, tell us about how old the place is and a little bit about it.
Well, my husband's great-grandparents came here in about 1805 or 1806, somewhere in that neighborhood, and they built this house. We don't know how long it took them, but we do know, and it's well documented, that they began the second house, or the main house, in 1808. That is all well documented.
Well, there are two houses here that have actually been registered by the National Register of Historic Places.
Yes.
And both houses have been that, and I think it's funny how you call it the old house and the new house.
That's right.
One was built in
1805 or 6 and 1808.
The old house and the new house. Just to give you a little perspective there, folks. Well, Miss Mary,
and this was, Pete, this was Bedford County.
No kidding.
Right. It all says Bedford County.
How about that? Well, and then they changed the county lines on you.
They created Lincoln in November of 1809. And they were here, and they had their deed and so forth in 1808, but they were living here knowing that they were going to have it.
How about that? Well, Miss Conger, why don't you give us a little closer look at the place, and folks, you're just going to love this. Miss Conger knows her history. I guarantee you, I know this lady, and she has a lot to tell you. So you stay with us right here on the 50-Cent Tour. Let's take a closer look.
Well, Pete, we're on the back side, or at the back door of the old house that was built by the Congers, Isaac and Mary Moores Conger, in circa 1805. They came, and I listened to the story many, many times from my father-in-law. They came in an ox cart from North Carolina with a piggin and a pail and very little else. A piggin, by the way, was a bucket with 2 handles, and a pail was a bucket, and they were wooden, with 1 handle. Now, they lived in that ox cart with a shed built to it, or lean-to built to it, while they built this house. The house is 40 feet long, the original, 40 feet long by 20 feet, and the first floor is stone, and the second floor logs.
How about that? Now, what relationship were these Congers to you, Miss Conger?
Well, now, they were my husband's great-grandparents. Now then, any other family, Pete, would have had several generations in there, but they did it slowly. Isaac's son was 49 when he married. His son, John Bell, help me. Dixie was 39. John was 34. And John Bell was in his 30s. and you know, you just don't make generations very fast.
You sure
but anyway, that son and, Isaac, the first one here, and Mary Moores, his wife, were my husband's great-grandparents.
Well, Miss Conger, you got a little prompting from your boy, Mr. John Bell. Why don't you introduce us?
All right, you help me so that if I need help.
Hello, John.
I'm the prompter.
How are you today?
I'm doing fine.
Well, John, you're going to show us the old house, or the new house, after we take a look at the old house.
That's correct.
Looking forward to seeing it.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's go on in and take a look around, Miss Mary.
All right, we're going in the back door.
All right.
And this, the porch and the 10-foot extension on the right was added by us, and it's called by the National Trust for Historic Preservation. It's called a sympathetic addition. And we did that because John and I were coming down here to make this our home. We had lived in the main house for 38 years. We lived up the road in the foreman's house for 12. And we were coming down here because we wanted John Bill and Jane, his wife, and their family to carry on the tradition. And this seemed, we also needed to restore the place because we were scared it might fall down.
Well, it sure is beautiful, I can tell you that.
And we had one place that was giving us trouble, and that was in a wall right over the window here, if you can see it. And it was no problem at all, but we did put the buttresses in, and the architects say that is, of course, they are the oldest form of supporting a stone wall over Europe and Burma and everywhere else. Now then, and as I said, we needed a kitchen, and we added the 10-foot space on the end. Now, John Bell points something out to me, and this is, you see the chest there?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, tradition has it that came with them in the ox cart.
No kidding.
And it's old.
It sure is. What is that covered in?
It's covered with a skin.
Deer.
And I don't know. Do you think it's horse?
A deer hide.
Deer hide.
Oh.
Now the deer hide is one John Bell killed. The hide is something that we put on to protect the original.
Right.
As I told you at the beginning, they built this house, and then they started immediately in 1808 when they had a clear deed to everything. And they had to make their bricks, and this is a part of one of the bricks. And here is a mold that they used. There are several of those around.
Wow, so there's the brick mold, and there's one of the bricks they made to build this place originally.
At the main house.
Wow.
And it's, yes, and think about how many they had to build. I mean. But while we're out here, I'd like for you to look at this window. I decorate with spider webs. The window frame, this is an original window frame. The original is in that one. The front one had to be replaced in the 40s. But you can see where the bars went perpendicular, and they were cut off in years, during the years. But they did not have window glass, so they used bars and skins and quilts or whatever they had to keep the cold out. And the bars kept the animals out.
So this place was built before they had glass?
Before they had it available. I don't know. I'm going to say that.
Okay. Deal.
But this is new. Do you see that wooden axle? John Bell brought that in from the shop recently. That's a 1923 two-horse wagon license plate. What is it, 25 cents? Lincoln County.
How about that?
Isn't that something?
That is something.
Well, anyway, we have a lot of people who come in, and of course you know, and all the Lincoln Countyans I'm sure know, that this was Indian hunting ground, and that's the reason this part of the state was a little slower in getting done. But we were talking about this Lincoln County was made from Bedford County.
How about that?
In 1809. Come on, and we're going in the back door. This is the back of the house. So welcome.
All right.
Originally, this was open on this particular end down here where you're standing, and that, and back here. The upstairs extended over this area. They had a wash basin here. Oh gosh.
Wow, that is awesome.
Now then, you talk about they had to chisel stone.
That's the hard way to wash your hands, isn't it?
Yes. And you can come through, and we'll go into the living room, or the family, well, it was called the keeping room. And the keeping room, do you have light enough?
Mm-hmm.
If the keeping room was where they did everything. The pioneers, they cooked, they washed. I doubt that they were ironed, but they slept, they ate. Whatever they did, they had to do in this room.
Wow.
The walls, let me tell you before we take a look at it so detailed, the walls are 2 feet thick, 2 stone walls with a dead air space between them. Now then, do you wonder why we have the least heating and cooling bills that we've ever had? Just look around.
It's the ultimate in insulation, isn't it?
Mr. J.T. McDowell took on the job very capably, and we think did a splendid job, and he listened to us because every morning we told them when they went to work on the restoration, don't you remove an as mark or a chisel mark or anything that the original builders put in there.
I guess that's important to maintain actually how it was, not make it too good, too perfect.
We wanted to respect the builders.
How about that?
And we feel that they did. He had helpers, and they stayed with us several months. But we were really pleased that they did. Now they had to re-chink these stones because they had the chinking had the mortar had fallen out, and they had to be redone.
Miss Conger, what do you think life was like back then in 1806, 1808?
It's rough, but they didn't know it.
I guess not.
And look, all right, they were sort of different kind of people. I'll say this, and I say that, and I'm not one of the. I'm an in-law. But how about the double sink?
That's unbelievable.
Now, we have had people from all over, well, from Columbia University in New York, from all over the state, from out of state, from everywhere, to come and look. And this one boy came, a friend of John Bell's, and from Indiana. And he came out while they were working, and he came out at the building shaking his head, and I said, what do you think about it? He said, well, I have never seen anything like this except something similar to it in Burma when I was on a tour, some years back. And he said, They made us take our shoes off to go in.
Well, they were trying to preserve it, I guess. A double sink is rare in a household today, let alone in a house this old. Now, taking a real close look at this, this was chiseled out of stone.
That's thick stone, and it had to be chiseled. John Bell, tell us something.
Okay, now the basin outside where the water came in, they piped the water in here by taking something like a 2x4 and grooving it on one side and pegging them together, and they had running water coming in. It flowed into the outside basin, and then there's a hole through the wall, the 2-foot wall, this double sink.
Well, they were really uptown then, had running water.
They had running water.
The architects who've been here, and there have been many of those, have been awed by how they saw ahead of their times. And but now the pipe, they dug up a piece of that pipe, and it's been since I've been here, and I've been here 55 years. But we kept it, and then in all of the moving of stuff out of here, because this was used as a wash house, and well, for about 85 years it was used as a house for the people who worked on the farm. And but then after that, about 1900, they poured over the earthen floor a layer of cement, and they used this for the wash house, and when they killed hogs, they cooked the lard out in the fireplace, and they had to wash the floors and so forth. So they drained the wash water out of a hole and through a hole over here.
How about that?
And then in 1920 they added another layer. Well, all of that had to be jackhammered out. So that was part of the restoration. We couldn't go back. Now, Pete, I could not adjust to an earthen floor.
I guess not.
I could adjust to just about anything, but not a dirt floor.
You just keep sweeping and sweeping and it doesn't get clean.
We considered what was next to it, and it would be cement, but it had to be level. Okay. Now then, another feature of the house that so many have pointed out, and women particularly, a window seat. Can you see it?
Sure can.
Now, as we said at the beginning, they didn't have glass, and so the lighting was very limited, and they didn't have anything but candles. So, but we have tried not to use too bright a lighting, and just leave it as much like they had it as possible.
Well, they sure had a nice view from this window seat, didn't they?
Yes, they did. Of course, they had trees out there. They grew right up to them. I'm sure they were just sitting in a...
And back then, I'm sure we had a whole different host of varmints running around outside, too.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that was, I guess, maybe that excited us as much as anything, John Bell, would you move a little bit? Thank you. One morning while they were working, one of the workmen came up and said, "We found something real exciting. Come down." Well, I couldn't imagine, so I ran down, and they had gotten the cement out of here, and they were back into the fireplace. Well, they found in the corner over the left corner over there a passageway from the outside of the chimney in under the fire area and out at that grill.
How about that?
And I said, "Okay, what's it for?" What was it for? And Mr. McDowell said, It drew the cold air from the outside, heated it under the fire area, and blew the hot air into the room.
Unbelievable.
Rather than let it go up the chimney.
Running water and efficiently heated home.
How about that?
Unbelievable.
And the architects say, so many of them have said, we do that today, but we didn't know they did it back at that time. And of course, there they cooked over the fireplace. And in the years that have passed, much of that type of thing, we found that John's mother gave so much to the people who lived on the farm because they didn't think they'd ever need that stuff anymore. But we did have several pieces, and we don't use them. But I used to bring the school children, my class, out, and we had a neighbor who would pop popcorn in the iron pot. And the kids absolutely ate that up.
They did.
The popcorn and the thoughts of it.
Somehow I got the feeling that would taste real good coming off an open fire right out of that fireplace.
And this is the portrait. Is a portrait. It's a copy of the portrait, and it's the original went to a sister-in-law when divisions of things were made.
Who is that?
And this is Mary Moore's Conger, who came here, and she chewed her ground her teeth off while she chiseled stone, I think. But this was made when she was painted by an itinerant artist, the original. Our daughter took the original and, using exactly the same sizes, the same colors and everything, as near as possible, copied it.
How about that? What's your daughter's name?
Melinda.
She did a wonderful job.
Well, thank you, I'll tell her. She copied several portraits. They had, in the 1860s, I guess, or it could have been a little before. No, it would have been in the early 60s or a little before. They copied, an itinerant artist did many of the family portraits.
How about that?
And so most of them over in the other house. But we wanted Mary down here. That is what the window frame from this window in the it would have been in 1945. They found that the window frames, and this I guess might have been the top, maybe the bottom one was giving problems, and so they took it out and put in a new one. And that was to show how the holes were cut to hold the bars. Now, the timbers over the windows are just as they were, the originals.
How about that? And looking at this window, folks, gives you some idea of how thick the walls really are here. I guess every seat is a window seat, isn't it? Beautiful.
That is, you see, they're here and over there.
Mm-hmm.
The front door had to be replaced. But it's a copy of the original. Now, I have a feeling that the original did not have a window in it, and in later years they cut one. But this door was very badly damaged, and Mr. McDowell tried to reclaim it and restore it, but my husband John wasn't satisfied with it. This door he made, Mr. McDowell made, and it's hand grooved, and it's thick wood, and it was cut here on the farm and had been in the barn aging for years. This is the front of the house, and that is, as you've seen, the front door. They did not have the stoop. We added the stoop, and we added that type of stoop because we thought that would have been the simplest type and the kind that they would have done if they had done it. But that is to protect the door, that the original door could not be salvaged. The logs are as they were, except they have eaten places, and I'll tell you about those. They are not done by bugs or anything. My mother-in-law loved ivy, and she had this covered with ivy, and it was pretty. But my husband in the 40s came along one day, and he saw the windowsill was giving trouble, and he pulled off the ivy and found that the roots eat into the logs. So he pulled all of the ivy off. She had it on the brick house, and her husband had all of that pulled off because it literally destroys the soft mortar that they had, and it destroys logs. Now then, the logs were treated when it was done, and Mr. McDowell says it's sound as it can be. Actually, the wood is like petrified wood.
Wow, super hard, huh?
Super hard. I mean, if you want to drive a nail, you've got to, whew. That is an original door, except for this one plank here and the batten right down here. The door was damaged on the bottom because over the years the soil builds up on the outside, and so it caused the water to run into here sometimes, and it damaged the bottom of that door. Now, they used a deadbolt for a lock, the originals, and so over the years they had cut holes or knocked out holes and to use chains and ropes to tie to the deadbolt to close it. Well, I told Mr. McDowell, I said, now Mr. McDowell, I don't want that deadbolt moved, but I don't know how to use it. And he said, well, you're not going to use it because you can't get it off ever. And so he said, give me time to think. He took 2 old porcelain knobs that I had, black ones. I didn't want white ones. I have plenty of white ones, but I wanted it black. And he did this thing by hand, and it works from the outside and the inside.
Well, what a good craftsman you had working on it, Mr. McDowell, seems to me.
I mean, he really was.
Where are we going now?
We're going out of the keeping room into the area under the extended upstairs. And as I said at the beginning, it was open on both ends and to the back. The stairway was put here in about 1840 when they had when they had sawmills that had come in, you know, that they could saw lumber rather than doing it with that kind of saw. And that all of the rest of it was done with this. But in about 1840, they put the stairway in and they had used a ladder up until that time.
Oh, the hard way.
To go upstairs. And this is what they put in 1840. It's had many brushes full of paint cleaned out on them, and I've helped do that, and then I struggled and struggled trying to get it off. welcome to the upstairs, and it is log. On the ends, the logs are 20 feet long, and on the sides, 40 feet long.
Wow.
Now, we didn't want to cover up anything, and so we left the decking that was put there and the original rafters. We left them as they were. Now, the decking, some of it was the original, but most of it was about 1840 when they put the stairway, because they had to replace the wooden shingle roof. That would have been 30 years, so 35.
But we can see you left a lot of the original decking there and just decked over it.
Oh, this is 1840. Some of it is the saw, straight saw.
Yeah.
Some of it is the
Mill.
That type of saw.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those boards, well, you can look at the board right here. Look at the width of them.
You don't see that anymore, do you, Miss Conger?
No. This was one big room. And we wanted to make it livable, and we didn't want to detract from it. And we used whitewash, a synthetic whitewash like they use in at Williamsburg, on the walls that we added to make closets on either side of this, a bedroom back there, and a very small sitting room here. We even added a bathroom, and you can see how we tried to hide, and
you did quite well. Now this
is the bedroom that we made.
Wow, it's so beautiful.
But look at the walls. They're perfect. The logs. It's amazing. And this is the original floor you're walking on.
Almost 200 years old, and this place is dried in.
Almost 200.
Wow.
And I heard Mr. McDowell tell people that it had been here almost 200, and he could safely say, barring a tornado or a fire, that it would be standing. He would say he could safely guarantee that it would be here for another 100 years, and he felt sure that it would be 2.
How about that? Well, what a home.
Now,
what a home. The bedroom is just so elegant. Folks, I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am, taking pictures of this place. We feel very privileged that Miss Conger has let us come into her home and kind of crash your house. Beautiful.
well, thank you. As I say, it's interesting. I'm not saying it's beautiful, but I'm saying it's interesting, and no one else has one like it. And they made all the doors. Some of them were made out of old doors from houses on the farm, but they made them and they shaped them to fit the place for them. And it takes someone, a craftsman, who is very patient to do that type of work.
So that's closet space then?
That what?
That's right. Closet space?
That's closets, and that's closets. You can see the width. So we have, but we're not going in there.
No. But I think it is interesting to point out how they did shape the doors to fit you can see up in the corner, they cut the corner of the door out so that it would fit the loft area.
Right. I was looking in a library book and saw that not long ago. Well, last night to be exact. somebody was up here and they had just come from Mount Vernon, and they said, "You've got doors like they have in Mount Vernon," the batten doors, and they fitted them to the spaces.
How about that?
If it meant cut off a corner and make it fit, well, that's what they did.
Yeah, you're not going to find a blueprint to that, are you?
I don't know, but we have tried, and I hope that everybody. Oh wait, I wanted to show you one plank in here. Now, this shows it very plainly, the width of that decking, those planks, and some of those, Pete, a few of them go the full 40 feet.
That's almost 2 feet wide, if not even past that, wider than 2 feet.
32 inches, some of them.
32 inches wide, John.
Right.
Wow.
They
That's
had
a
big
thing of the
trees.
past.
They had big trees.
I would have liked to have been in the county back then, wouldn't you have?
Oh, yeah. I don't know whether I would be. I'm not sure that I would be active enough to do.
Well, Mary, they had running water.
I worked, and we all worked. Our grandchildren, John Bell's children, were magnificent. Lane painted or stained all of the laths that, I think, 6 or 7 rows of laths that went 50 feet.
Oh, my.
And she wouldn't let anybody else do it. So everybody had and they worked hard, and they seemed to enjoy it, and they were just wrapped up in it. And I find them sitting in here just any time. When they put in the cooling and heating system, I came up, and here are all these great big pipes and this horrible thing sitting here, and I looked at it and I said, that either you hide that or you take it out.
Wow.
And I started crying and left. They hid it.
They did a good job. I never would have known it was there had you not told me.
My husband insisted that they leave a place to show how they chinked.
Miss Mary, tell us what chinking is.
All right, they put in these pieces of wood that took less of the chinking than if they had put it all in, like that.
Yeah.
But they used the wood, and as the logs dried out, they went farther apart, and so to keep the cold out, they had to. We added the what they call the sympathetic addition, and because we needed a kitchen, and we used. Mr. McDowell went to a sawmill and picked out the poplar, because all of this wood is poplar. We found only one piece that wasn't poplar, and that was the bottom step of the stairway, and it was a solid walnut, and I cleaned it off and made a hat rack out of that piece of walnut, and you can see that it was on the. It didn't survive on one end, but that was the step. The kitchen cabinets that had been used in the main house around 1900. They were freestanding cabinets that they rolled around and put wherever they needed them. And there were 3 of them. My mother-in-law, who is in that picture, had the cabinets dismantled and attached to the wall, and she had a new refrigerator, electric refrigerator, an electric stove, a radio, a coffee maker, and all of these good things that she'd never had. And she had this TVA sink. When we got ready to do this, we said, let's move those down here.
Good idea.
Pete, they all fit. I mean, they fit.
Looks like they're custom made for this area.
You can't believe it. I'll tell you, we said it was something that was intended to be, because that not only things like that, I've made rugs over all the years that I've been married, except the first one, and they all fit. Now then, you tell me we weren't supposed to do this.
Well, folks, we hope you have enjoyed this tour of the old Conger home. It's the oldest home in Lincoln County that somebody is still living in, and I am just so proud, Miss Mary, you took us on that trip.
Oh, you're very kind, Pete. We are happy to share it with people because we respect the people who did the work originally.
And you can see that they've maintained that and gone to every effort to just keep the old home place the old home place, and
yeah,
we appreciate that so very much.
Thank you, Pete.
Now, Miss Conger, she's going to be nice enough to volunteer her boy to show us the new home, made in 1808. We'll take a look at that and continue this 50-cent tour of the Conger homes. We're in the Mimosa community in Lincoln County. Miss Mary, I'm going to hug your neck.
You're fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Folks, welcome back to the Conger Tour here on the 50-cent tour. We're looking through some of the oldest homes in Lincoln County, and it's been fascinating so far. To take us on part 2 of the tour is Mr. John Bell Conger. John, we appreciate you having us out.
Great, Pete.
Tell us what we're going to be seeing today.
Well, you're going to see one of the first original brick houses in Middle Tennessee. It was the brick were the church was dug and the brick was fired right here in the front yard.
How about that?
And this house behind us was started in 1808. It took them nearly 16 years since my great-great-grandfather was a Methodist circuit rider. He had to spend a lot of time on the circuit, so it took him many years. But the house has a full basement due to getting all the church in making the brick.
So where they took the brick from is they built the house over.
That's right.
Folks, we're going to take a closer look right now here on the 50-cent tour. You stay with us.
Come on, let's go. We'll show you around.
All right. Now this is still a working farm, isn't it?
That's correct.
What's going on out here on the farm?
Well, we predominantly are cattle and hogs, and that's what we're raised. We're entering the original house that was started in construction in 1808. Now this particular room was more or less their living room back in the olden days. The steps over here, originally there was only a ladder going up there. Into that room was the girls' room. And they would take the ladder down at night. Later on, they modernized it and put a winding staircase in that particular corner.
Now, John, was taking the ladder down to keep the girls from getting out or the guys from getting in?
Well, both. The girls had to stay up there overnight when they put them in. And upstairs, there's a boys' room on the other side, but there's no door between the two rooms. Over in this corner, you'll notice an old grandfather clock, probably one of the first pieces brought from North Carolina when they moved over here in the early 1800s.
Wow. Who's on the wall, John?
That is a sister to the original Mary Conger.
How about that? Mary's sister.
Mm-hmm. Aunt Jane. And this picture behind over here is, we don't know whether it was Isaac, the original Methodist circuit rider, or his son Zion. we kind of lost track. We feel like it may have been the original Isaac Conger, who was a Methodist circuit rider.
Fascinating. And who do we have on this wall? Do we know?
That is another relative, and we'll have to get my mother to tell you who that is.
The history buff.
Right. The couple over here on this wall were my grandparents, Dixie and Mary Conger.
Dixie and Mary Conger. How about that? I guess it's a lot more than just a house. It's a heritage, isn't it?
That's right.
Oh, wow.
This is more or less the parlor or room where they had their dining area and so forth. And the picture that's on the wall is a picture my sister did of my dad. On the other wall is a picture my sister did of my mother, and that particular picture you're looking at right now is a self-portrait that my sister did of herself.
Oh, about that. I'd say Sis is a talented gal.
Yes. And these are some of the original doors. This is the original floor right here. It's an ash, made out of ash.
How about that?
Let's go upstairs to the boys' room. Now when they constructed this house, they did put a stair steps there.
Terrific. I noticed that everything is built around these fireplaces, John.
Right.
Are they still working, fireplaces?
They have been outfitted with gas now. We're really modernized them.
The only way to go. But they left the stairs to the boys' room, huh?
That was put in the original construction, but it was not to the girls' room.
Oh, look at that old bed. Great old brass bed there. You don't see brass beds with that huge of brass fittings there. Terrific. So this was the boys' room.
This was considered the boys' room.
Big closet doors.
Right. And at some time, if we ever get to it, this is solid cherry. The fireplace is, but that is going to be a chore to undertake to take off the old paint.
Don't you know it?
Now we're going from the addition that was completed in 1816 into the next edition of the house, which was in 1860.
Oh, now we're in modern times.
Yeah.
So this is 1 year before the Civil War.
Correct.
How about that? Wow. Oh, folks, I just hope the camera does this room justice. It's such grandeur when you walk in here. Wow. Love that bookcase.
Okay, Pete, get a shot of that wall behind you. That is the original brick wall. As masons, there was the Flemish style bond that they used in construction.
See that little crease in the masonry.
Right. If you'll notice, the butt ends were here. You drop down in every fifth row had a different style the way the brick was laid.
How about that? What a place.
My wife is off teaching school. My daughter Lane is the only child here today.
Hey,
the
Lane.
other two are off running with playing ball.
Thanks for letting us crash your house. You get a lot of people through here?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I figured. Don't call me sir, I can't handle respect.
But this is one of the original rooms.
Wow.
We use it as a bedroom now.
How tall are the ceilings in here?
They're a good 10 feet tall.
You know, I can't believe how cool this house is. It's a balmy day outside, folks, but this house, I guess all the heat gets in the upper part of the room and away from the folks who live here.
Right, with the 10-foot ceilings, it sure does help. We're going out of the kind of the living room into the kitchen, which used to be the formal dining room that this home. And this is the last addition to the house. This is the newest addition, and it was completed in 1878. So we're in the newest part of the house. And a few years ago, when we were working on this house, in this kitchen, we uncovered the ceiling. Now, I hope you can get a shot of that ceiling.
Got it.
That is the original paint, and if you'll notice, every other board is painted a different color.
Sure is.
We were astonished, and we've just left it the way it was originally.
Now, what was that covered with, John?
My grandmother had covered it up with cheesecloth and paper.
Oh,
and
wow.
just papered it. And all these years, we have never seen what was underneath.
Wow.
We pulled it off, and we just left it.
It's incredible how good shape the paint is in still.
It is. It was protected since probably the early 1900s, because my dad and his brothers cannot remember anything about that ceiling. They never did see it.
How about that? The cabinetry is really something in this place, John.
Yes. This particular cabinetry was put in 1952.
Once again, tall ceilings, keeping the house real cool. You know, to wallpaper a house like this must be an enormous investment.
It's not cheap.
With as expensive as wallpaper is, and I imagine out of a single roll you get a couple of strips, and that's about it with these tall 10-foot ceilings. I just like the country flair you got on everything in this house. Terrific.
Now this particular room is the boys' room. They use it, and it was the old original kitchen that they put in here in 1889. But now it is kind of, the boys use it as their hideaway. And in this particular room, we have where Lane hides out. She has all her stuffed animals, and
It's so bright in here. That's just, it's amazing how they laid this house out to take full use of everything. Sun, and this was one bright room compared to the rest of the house.
this was the original screened-in back porch.
No kidding.
When my grandparents lived here, I remember it as a youngster. They spent a lot of time out on this room.
And now Lane's sleeping on the porch.
Yeah. In comfort.
Mm-hmm. Boy, now there's a beautiful window. Is that original?
No, that was originally a doorway.
No kidding. When was this enclosed?
This was enclosed in 1952.
How about that? You know, no matter what window you look out of in this house, you have a great view. Mimosa is just that way, isn't it?
It's always been that way. We're partial, though.
I hope so.
Come on, Pete, and let's go outside and we'll look around this way.
Who did all the work on the porch? That was some work went into laying this out, isn't it?
It was done in about 1952, part of this. There used to be a wraparound porch around here, and we changed it to more or less a patio. But one of the features that I want to show you that I had fun when I was a kid growing up here and was always fascinated with was the spring house, which is just outside. And the original refrigerator here on the farm, and it's still cool down in there with water running.
A spring house. So this is how they kept their cream and butter cool.
That's right. And
about that,
we can. It's a little cluttered going down in there now, but
well, I see
it's still nice and cool down in that spring house.
How about that? So they had running water. They had a place to keep their cold drinks and their milk cool from spoiling. They about had it all here, didn't they?
Well, they tried to be self-sufficient in this area, and they didn't go to town that much.
No, and town was a trip back then.
That's right, 7 miles. I am standing on one of the, what I consider a historic rock in Mimosa.
Actually, you're standing on a stump, John.
That's right, but I'm hanging in the breeze here. But this particular rock is a directional sign on the old road. The old original road going from Mimosa to Mulberry turned up 60-acre hollow. Well, this was a marker that told the distances. From this side, there's a hand pointing right here toward Mimosa, and Mimosa is printed out, Mimosa 1 mile. The F stands for Fayetteville, and it's 7 miles away.
How about that?
On this other side, if I don't break my neck getting down,
We can see the hand again.
The hand is pointing toward Mulberry, and it's saying Mulberry is 3 miles away. Boonville is 5 miles, and the L stands for Lynchburg, and it's 11 miles.
How about that? Now, how old do you reckon this is?
Let's go back in the 1800s sometime.
Now, this was the main road for Fayetteville and all.
It was considered one of the main roads, and it went through 60-acre hollow over to what is now the old Boonville Road, just out of Mulberry.
A little piece of Mimosa history there, folks.
Originally, prior to being called Mimosa, the mailing address of Mimosa was Bucksnort, Tennessee. And this letter bears a Tullahoma cancellation of August the 18th, 1892.
How about that? Folks, there it is for real. And that letter found you. Conger Brothers, Bucksnort, Tennessee. That's all it needed to find you, huh?
That was it. And notice they via Fayetteville, Lincoln County.
Well, Mr. John Bell Conger, I can't thank you enough for showing us around the old home place.
Well, it's been our pleasure having you here.
You must really be proud of it, being rode up in the Progressive Farmer and having so many people interested in your place.
Yeah, it's been well, we've enjoyed showing it off. We're kind of partial to it, though, you know.
I hope so. Folks, we're in Lincoln County, Tennessee, and why don't you tell us a little bit about the Mimosa community?
Well, the Mimosa community was, you know, Pete, the first consolidated school in the South was right over here in Mimosa. And that school is also on the National Historical Site.
We'll show you a picture of that.
And you know, there were 5 schools that combined to make that one school.
How about that?
And it's and the rock work that you see in our barns here, there's a whole lot of that over there too. And you know, it's just home.
It sure is. And I gotta say, folks, that the folks out here in the Mimosa community have kind of just taken me in and made me feel like a son of Mimosa out here. It's just a great community. If you're ever out this way, make sure you take a drive down Mimosa Road, and you'll see some of the prettiest sights that Lincoln County or all of Tennessee has to offer, for that matter. But for now, I'll say thanks again to Mr. John Bell Conger and Miss Mary Conger, who gave us the tour earlier in the show. And we'll say a special thanks to you watching right here on Cablevision. Thanks for watching, folks. You've been watching